I ain't even say this perm having name. You just want to bring the top up. Say, bro, man, you be relevant, and I said what I said, bro. You need a nigga like me to keep you going.
You're saying Cottrell is evil and he's a bad influence. So you want to go and put that man on his knees.
Y'all seen that? NBA YoungBoy just dropped a reaction to NLE, the greats KO. And if you ain't caught the clip yet, let me tell you what really went down. Cause this ain't your regular YouTube reaction. This is like catching a lightning strike in slow motion, raw, unfiltered, and yeah, kinda dangerous if you know the streets. Word on the block is, NBA wasn't just vibing, he was watching, leaning back, eyes locked on the screen like every bar NLE spit was a personal message. People close to him say he don't just react, he absorbs it, analyzes every lyric, every flow switch, every jab. And y'all know how NBA do. He don't play when it comes to respect. One wrong word, one misstep in the booth, and the whole energy in the room shifts. Now, check this. Sources claim there was a private message, leaked somewhere between the lines of the video, where NBA YoungBoy supposedly said something like, "You think that's a KO? Wait till I respond." And if you know the game, a line like that, that's a challenge. That's tension crackling through the phone lines, through the DMs, through the streets. But here's the kicker. This ain't just about one video, one reaction, or one artist flexing on another. Nah, this is deeper. Loyalty, respect, ego, money, everything wrapped up in a few minutes of screen time. And the vibes. They hint at moves being made behind closed doors, plans being whispered in corners, and alliances about to shift. You'll think it's just a reaction. Nah, this moment right here, it's way deeper than it looks. And by the time we break it all down, you're gonna see the streets, the charts, and the culture all colliding in one wild, explosive moment. It all started somewhere deep in Baton Rouge, a city where loyalty and reputation carry more weight than money in the bank. NBA YoungBoy had just pulled up from a long studio session, the kind where the air smells like cigarette smoke and ambition. He was scrolling through his phone when a snippet of NL the Great's Co. hit his feed. At first, it was just curiosity, a casual watch, but you'll know how it goes. Once that first bar dropped, the energy shifted. People close to him said he stiffened, leaned back in his chair, and stared at the screen like he was seeing something personal, something that touched a nerve. The reaction wasn't just about the music. It was about the unspoken dialogue between two young kings, both grinding, both claiming territory, both aware of who's watching. Here's what people don't understand. In their world, a verse is never just a verse. Every punchline, every flex, every mention of streets or struggle carries weight. It's a declaration, a silent challenge, and NBA, he don't miss those signals. He felt it in his chest, the rhythm hitting like a heartbeat, the bars slicing through ego and respect like a razor. He played it cool, but inside, the gears were turning. Loyalty to his circle, pride in his own craft, the unspoken rules of the game. They all collided in that moment. You'll seen the leaked DM? Somewhere between the lines of the reaction, NBA supposedly sent a message that read like a warning. Sources close to both camps say it was short, cryptic, and heavy with implication. Respect is earned. Don't forget that. Not a threat, not an invitation, just a statement. But in their world, that line alone could ignite a chain reaction. But the tension didn't stop there. Clips of the studio reaction leaked. Fans started dissecting every frame, his facial expressions, the nods, the pauses. Every little twitch became fodder for speculation. Some said he looked angry, others said amused. Some even claimed they heard him mutter under his breath, "I ain't even started." The ambiguity made it electric, because in hip-hop, the quietest moves are often the loudest. This was more than music. This was street-level chess. Friends, enemies, collaborators, they all read the vibes differently. Loyalty is currency here. Ego is as fragile as glass. NBA's inner circle started noticing the subtle shifts. Texts that used to be casual got formal. Studio sessions had new rules. Certain people weren't allowed to sit in the same room. Tension wasn't loud. It was in the air, in the eyes, in the silence. The streets can feel it before the music even hits the speakers. And here's where the history matters. NBA and NLE, they've been on parallel paths, crossing indirectly for years. Both young, both from neighborhoods that taught them that trust is earned, that respect is non-negotiable, that failure can be fatal. Yet their rivalry, or maybe it's just tension, wasn't new. It simmered under the surface, quiet like a river ready to flood. Their crews knew it, and social media amplified it. Every comment, every post, every reaction video became a potential spark. At one point, there was a leaked clip of NBA in the studio, phone in hand, listening again to Co. Someone asked, "Man, you mad or what?" And he replied, calm but heavy, "Nah, just paying attention. You can learn a lot from what people throw at you." But even that calm was loaded. The subtle eye roll, the smirk, those little things told a story the words didn't. He was analyzing, strategizing, positioning himself. Street Psychology 101. Read your opponent, understand their weaknesses, never show your own. The emotional stakes were high. Loyalty to his team, pride in his craft, the weight of fame, the pressure of being watched. All of it converged in that one reaction. People outside the circle couldn't see the nuances. The fans only got flashes, highlights. But behind the cameras, behind the screens, the reality was dense, layered, tense. Every glance at the phone, every pause in conversation, every nod in the studio had meaning. And money. That always lurks in the background. Contracts, streams, influence. It's the unspoken referee. Both young artists are chasing more than beats and bars. They're chasing legacy, impact, and control over an empire that moves faster than most can track. Respect from peers can make or break deals. A misread reaction, a missed cue, can cost not just clout, but real-life leverage. Then came the first leak that really stirred the pot. A snippet surfaced online where NBA allegedly said something about the KO beat being weak. Now, whether he actually said it or not, the rumor spread like wildfire. The streets, the forums, the fans, they all exploded. Suddenly, a reaction video became a battleground. Commentary videos, memes, debates. They framed the narrative before anyone had the full context. And in hip-hop, the narrative is everything. It shapes perception, controls energy, dictates moves. This is the foundation, the moment before escalation. It's the calm eye of the storm, where the players size each other up, weigh options, and start making moves that'll echo long after the cameras stop rolling. At this stage, nobody had thrown a real jab yet, but everyone knew the air was charged. It's the kind of tension that only exists in environments where reputation, loyalty, and skill collide in real time, and the subtle shifts. They're recorded in the body language, the pauses, the choice of words. This is street-level strategy disguised as casual reaction. And somewhere in all of this, there's fear too. Not fear of losing a fight or money or fame, but fear of disrespect. In their world, disrespect travels faster than loyalty. Once it spreads, it can't be contained. So the reaction, the glances, the private messages, they all operate like shields, like quiet warnings. It's chess in real time. Every move measured, every expression calculated. By the end of that night, NBA YoungBoy had done what he always does. He observed, digested, and planned. The streets, the industry, the fans, they only saw a reaction video. They didn't see the silent calculations, the subtle shifts in his team, the unspoken messages being sent to his peers. What looked like a casual watch was actually a strategic read, a prelude to moves that nobody could predict yet. And that's right at the cusp. The foundation is set, the players are in position, and the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. What follows? Escalation, confrontation, alliances tested, and moves that'll change the energy in ways the public can barely imagine. The quiet before the storm. The next few days were chaotic, if you can even call it that. In the streets, chaos moves slow at first, like a low hum under your skin. But it grows, builds tension, until it explodes without warning. After NBA YoungBoy's reaction leaked, the chatter got louder. His camp started noticing subtle changes in how people interacted with him. Some friends quieter than usual, some associates a little too eager to share updates. Social media became a battlefield. Memes, reaction videos, comments, even subtle tweets, all dissected every micro-expression. The streets love tension. They feed off it. Every leaked clip, every ambiguous DM, every subtle gesture becomes fuel. NBA and his closest allies started dissecting NL's moves, what beats he was choosing, how he was presenting himself, the tone of his lyrics. It was all data. At this point, music was secondary. Strategy and perception became primary. People around them started feeling it. One associate said, "It's like walking on a wire over a pit full of snakes. One wrong move and everything bites." And then the first real confrontation arrived. Not in person, but online. A fan posted a video comparing NBA's bars to NLE's Co., framing it as a battle of dominance. NBA saw it, nodded, and sent a short damn back to his team. Watch, listen, plan. The calmness in his response was dangerous. It wasn't overconfidence, it was calculation. He knew the value of silence, of letting people underestimate his response. In the streets and the industry, perception shapes power. If you panic, you lose control. If you stay poised, you force others to reveal their hands. There were emotional beats in this phase too. Loyalty was tested in small, quiet ways. One of NBA's longtime associates hesitated to forward a snippet of NL's video, worried it would be seen as provoking. Another argued, "We can't ignore this. Respect is on the line." Those conversations, subtle as they were, carried weight. Every decision reinforced or undermined trust. Fear, pride, ego. They all intertwined in a mix so potent it could ignite at any moment. One night, a leaked voice note surfaced, allegedly of NBA saying, "You said what? I told you about my respect." The clip was raw, tension bleeding through every word. Even though it wasn't confirmed, the streets consumed it like gospel. Everyone began to speculate about retaliation, verbal or otherwise. But here's the thing, NBA's strategy wasn't always loud. Often, the most effective moves were invisible. That's why so many people misread the calm before the storm. And somewhere in all of this, money and business started creeping into the narrative. Streaming numbers for KO surged after the leaks, attention multiplied. Collaborations, potential deals, and promotional plans were affected. In hip-hop, perception translates into dollars. Disrespect could mean losing leverage in negotiations. The smallest hint of tension could ripple through contracts, endorsements, and future releases. So the stakes were higher than just personal pride. They were tangible, real, and measurable. The turning point in this escalation phase came in the studio one late night. NBA had gathered his core team, a group that knew the streets as well as the music charts. They sat in a dimly lit room, the kind of place where everyone can see your energy, your micro-expressions, your hesitation. Someone played Co again. This time, they weren't reacting, they were analyzing. Every bar, every flow change, every pause was catalogued, discussed, dissected. One person whispered, "This ain't just a song, this is a move, a signal." And NBA nodded slowly, eyes narrowing. Exactly, that's why we watch, that's why we plan. The psychological game was unfolding fast. Respect and ego were at war with strategy and patience. NBA's camp knew that one rash move could backfire, but hesitation could be just as dangerous. The lines between street loyalty, business sense, and psychological warfare blurred. Every conversation, every look, every post online became a chess piece. The tension in the air was palpable, almost visible, like smoke curling in dim studio lights. And yet, beneath all that strategy and calculation, there was fear. Not fear of losing fights, but fear of losing credibility, respect, and influence. In their world, credibility is everything. Once it cracks, the effects ripple outward. Friends and enemies alike pay attention. Alliances shift. And so NBA moved carefully, observing, strategizing, letting the storm grow before deciding how to strike. The emotional layers deepened when personal stakes got involved. Family, longtime friends, and loyal associates became extensions of the conflict. Texts were monitored, side conversations scrutinized. The stress affected behavior. One night, someone in the inner circle muttered, "This is bigger than music. This is life." And that line hit hard. They were right. The battle for respect and dominance in hip-hop often mirrors survival instincts from the streets. It's about position, perception, and power. And yet, in the midst of this tension, some moments of humanity peeked through. NBA, known for his intensity, was seen laughing quietly at a fan's reaction, shaking his head. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it showed a side of him that could separate humor from hostility, observation from action. These moments kept him unpredictable, a trait that's essential when your life is constantly under scrutiny. Unpredictability is a weapon, and NBA wielded it with finesse. The days turned into weeks, and the tension continued to mount. Leaks, reactions, posts, and DMs created an almost cinematic narrative in real time. Fans speculated, insiders whispered. Collaborators watched cautiously. The storm wasn't just approaching, it was forming in layers, each one heavier than the last. And NBA, always the strategist, stayed poised. He absorbed, analyzed, and waited. And that's where leaves us, at the peak of escalation, right before the confrontation. Alliances are being tested. Psychological games are in full swing. Loyalty and ego collide, and the storm is ready to hit. What happens next will change everything. Relationships, respect, and the perception of who really runs the streets and charts. The stage is set for the turning point, and trust me, it's going to be explosive. The turning point hit harder than anyone expected. It didn't come with sirens or shouting. It came in whispers, in a subtle shift that only those paying attention could feel. NBA YoungBoy had been quiet, observing, letting the storm build. But then a private clip surfaced, allegedly showing him in the studio replaying Co and muttering under his breath, "Nah, this ain't over." The clip, though short, was enough to make waves. In the streets and online, it became a spark. The atmosphere changed overnight. Friends and rivals alike started adjusting their moves, recalculating alliances and weighing their words before speaking. Inside NBA's camp, the tension was almost tangible. One of his closest associates leaned back and whispered, "Bro, this moment right here changed everything." He was right. The subtle confirmation that NBA was taking the situation personally meant that strategy had shifted into action mode. It wasn't just observation anymore. It was preparation for a response, measured but inevitable. This is where loyalty became priceless. Those who had always been down with NBA were summoned closer, and those whose commitment was questionable felt the weight of uncertainty. There were confrontations too, subtle but heavy. One night, someone from the periphery of NL's circle allegedly sent a message questioning NBA's street credibility. It was a small digital nudge, but in their world, small nudges carry big consequences. NBA's response was calm but sharp. "You think this is a game? Respect don't move like that." The words were brief, but the silence that followed spoke volumes. It was a warning and a lesson wrapped in one. An unspoken reminder that ego can get tested, but loyalty earns survival. This moment brought out raw emotion. Fear, pride, anger, and calculation all tangled together in a way that was almost poetic. NBA's crew, loyal as ever, felt it too. One associate muttered, "Yo, we gotta be ready. This ain't just bars no more." And that line hit deep because it was true. The conflict had spilled from music into perception, into influence, into real-life stakes. The lines between entertainment and survival blurred, creating a tension that was almost suffocating. Then came the dialogues, the exchanges that seemed small but carried enormous weight. "You said what? I told you about my respect." "Nah, this ain't over, bro." Lines like these circulated, some confirmed, some rumored, but all of them shaped the narrative. In the streets, words are weapons and timing is everything. One poorly timed comment or misread expression could spark months of chaos. NBA knew that, and so did everyone around him. The emotional depth of this phase is important. Loyalty, fear, money, ego, family, all of these collided. Someone close to NBA said quietly, "It's not just about the music, it's about showing who you are when nobody's watching." And that's the kind of philosophy that drives street-level strategy. It explains why small gestures, tiny nods, or quiet reactions can be more powerful than an entire verse aimed at an opponent. This is the psychology of influence, disguised as everyday life. Meanwhile, the bigger picture started emerging. Streams for Co surged, attention multiplied, and the industry took notice. Labels, collaborators, and promoters began weighing in, sometimes subtly, sometimes openly. The tension between NBA and NLE wasn't just personal. It had become a narrative that everyone wanted to capitalize on. But the players involved understood the danger. Narratives can be profitable, but they can also be destructive. A misstep could ruin careers, tarnish reputations, and fracture relationships permanently. Amid all this, the human side of the story flickered in brief, fleeting moments. NBA was reportedly laughing quietly at a fan's reaction video, shaking his head with a smirk. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it revealed a layer of control and unpredictability. Unpredictability is a weapon, especially in environments where people constantly watch your every move. It keeps opponents guessing and allies cautious. It maintains an edge that's crucial in both street politics and the music industry. The climax of this turning point phase arrived in a private studio session. NBA had gathered his core team in a dimly lit room, energy tight, air thick with anticipation. They listened to Co again, not for enjoyment, but for intel. Every bar, every change in tone, every lyrical jab was scrutinized. The conversation was quiet but tense. One voice muttered, This ain't just a song, it's a declaration. NBA nodded slowly, eyes sharp. Exactly. Every line tells a story. Every pause sends a signal. That single statement summed up everything about the psychology of these moments. Music isn't just music. It's strategy, it's influence, it's perception. The weight of loyalty became evident here. Decisions were being made in the room that would ripple outward. Who to trust, who to shield, who to confront, all of it was on the table. One small slip in judgment could fracture relationships permanently. The emotional toll was real. Fear and pride coexisted uneasily. Money, fame, influence, they all hovered in the background, but the real stakes were human: respect, credibility, survival. And then came the realization that the escalation had changed the game itself. What started as a reaction video had transformed into a narrative with layers of strategy, emotion, and consequence. The streets, the fans, the industry, everyone was invested in the outcome, even if only as spectators. And the players themselves, NBA and his team, were navigating a minefield where every decision could spark a chain reaction. As the phase closed, there was a sense of inevitability. The confrontation had begun in whispers, escalated in observation, and now it was approaching action. The tension between strategy and emotion reached its peak. Everyone understood the stakes, even if the public only saw fragments. Loyalty had been tested, ego had been provoked, and the chessboard was set. The turning point fully realized. The players poised on the edge, emotions raw but controlled, strategy in full swing, and the storm about to break into aftermath. What follows next will reveal consequences, shifts in power, and the lessons embedded in loyalty, respect, and survival. The stage is set, foe. The aftermath and bigger picture. The aftermath hit like a tidal wave, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. The dust settled, but the streets were still talking. After the turning point, the dynamics had shifted. NBA YoungBoy's team had made moves quietly, carefully, without tipping their hand. Some of NLE's associates felt the pressure immediately, others only later, when the effects rippled through their circles. The first thing people noticed was respect, both earned and reaffirmed. Loyalty had been tested, and those who had stayed true now carried weight. Those who wavered, they faded into whispers, replaced by others ready to take risks. The consequences weren't only personal, they were professional. Streaming numbers for KO remained strong, but now collaborations and label negotiations carried a different tension. Insiders began to see NBA not just as a rapper, but as a strategist, someone who could navigate complex networks of loyalty, reputation, and perception. Deals were re-evaluated, partnerships reconsidered, and people who had underestimated him learned to measure twice, act once. The industry moves silently, but it watches everything. And after this, NBA's moves were impossible to ignore. Emotionally, the aftermath was heavy. There were quiet moments of reflection in the studio, where longtime associates spoke in hushed tones. One said, "This is bigger than music, bigger than the streets. It's about respect and knowing your place, and that's the key. In environments like this, respect isn't given, it's earned and enforced." The balance between ego and loyalty determines survival. Fear, pride, and love for family mixed together, creating a tension that sometimes could be felt physically in the room. These weren't just abstract concepts. They dictated every action, every decision, every word spoken or withheld. Dialogues continued to echo. "You think this is the end?" someone asked quietly. "Nah," NBA responded calmly. "This is just the start." Words like that, understated but loaded, defined the narrative. The streets listen. They observe. They interpret. A line can be a warning, a lesson, or a promise, depending on timing, tone, and context. And here, timing mattered more than ever. The human side of the story never disappeared. Amidst the tension, there were small, almost invisible gestures of care and connection. NBA was reportedly checking on family, making sure close allies were secure, and even laughing quietly at moments when a fan posted an unexpectedly funny reaction. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but those moments revealed the balance between raw emotion and strategic control. Unpredictability remained a tool, keeping people guessing, staying 3 steps ahead. As the weeks went on, the aftermath shaped perception. The narrative wasn't just about a reaction video or a single song anymore. It became a lesson in leadership, loyalty, and influence. People began to see patterns. NBA's careful observation, measured responses, and strategic patience contrasted with the more reactive behavior of others. The lesson was clear. In this game, control of emotion equals control of power. It's not about who hits hardest. It's about who sees the entire board, moves quietly, and lets others reveal themselves first. Meanwhile, public speculation and social media chatter remained intense. Fans debated endlessly, some taking sides, others simply observing. Leaked clips, interviews, and indirect references kept the story alive. Some influencers framed it as a rap beef, others as a chess match. The reality was somewhere in between, a blend of personal pride, street code, and calculated strategy, with each layer feeding the other. The narrative had outgrown a single song. It had become a lesson in human behavior, power dynamics, and loyalty. And then came the subtle victories. Respect was reaffirmed in small, almost invisible ways. A nod in the studio, a quiet conversation behind closed doors. The way collaborators consulted NBA before moves were made. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't public. But influence, once established, moves silently, yet powerfully. The people who understood the game recognized it instantly. Those who didn't, they misread calm for weakness, only to find out later that they had underestimated the strategist in front of them. The psychological layers remained thick. Fear and ego still danced in the background, but now strategy ruled the room. Every conversation, every text, every gesture carried weight. The lessons of loyalty and respect became more pronounced, almost ritualized in how decisions were made. The crew began to operate with a quiet precision, anticipating reactions, measuring outcomes, and safeguarding relationships. Mistakes were expensive, not just in money, but in credibility and influence. As the dust finally settled, the bigger picture emerged clearly. This wasn't just about NBA YoungBoy reacting to a single song. It was about understanding the mechanics of power, the weight of respect, and the invisible rules that govern both streets and industry. Loyalty had been tested and reinforced. Ego had been calibrated, and perception had shifted. The narrative, half legend, half reality, became a blueprint for how influence moves quietly, yet decisively. In reflection, the story demonstrates the delicate balance between emotion and strategy. Loyalty isn't just spoken, it's observed, enforced, and sometimes silently rewarded or punished. Fear and pride coexist, shaping behavior in ways outsiders rarely notice. Money and fame are important, but respect, the real, unspoken currency, drives decisions, reactions, and alliances. The entire saga becomes a lesson in leadership, patience, and the careful management of perception. And even now, months later, the echoes remain. Fans debate, insiders reflect, and the streets remember. What started as a reaction video evolved into a layered narrative that teaches more than music alone could. It teaches strategy, observation, and the power of patience. It teaches that in both streets and industry, who you are when nobody's watching often determines what happens when everyone is. The aftermath also highlighted how thin the line between conflict and respect really is. A small misstep could have turned the whole situation sideways, but measured moves, emotional awareness, and strategic patience changed the trajectory. It's a lesson in consequences, illustrating how every action, even a quiet observation, can ripple outward, affecting friendships, alliances, and careers. The streets, the fans, and the industry all watched, learned, and adjusted accordingly. As the story draws to a close, the narrative's moral emerges. Power isn't just physical or loud, it's psychological, it's strategic, it's emotional intelligence applied in high-stakes environments. NBA YoungBoy's reaction and the careful orchestration around it shows how influence operates silently, behind the scenes, in ways that only become fully visible in hindsight. Every lyric, every glance, every whispered word becomes a piece in the larger puzzle of loyalty, respect, and survival. And that brings us to the end of the main body. The storm has passed, but the lessons remain. The aftermath reveals the mechanics of power, the cost of respect, and the invisible rules that shape both streets and industry. It's a story that's half reality, half legend, but entirely instructive for anyone watching closely. Entirely instructive for anyone watching closely. So here we are, y'all. The dust has settled, the clips have circulated, and the streets are still buzzing. What happened between NBA YoungBoy and NL the Great wasn't just a reaction. It was a lesson in loyalty, respect, and how influence moves quietly, even when everyone's watching. This story shows that in the game, it ain't always about who hits hardest or who drops the loudest verse. Sometimes it's about patience, observation, and knowing when to speak and when to move in silence. Loyalty got tested, ego got measured, respect got reaffirmed, and the people paying attention saw the subtle ways power shifts. Not through chaos, but through controlled, deliberate moves. This is the kind of story that reminds us why street wisdom and business sense often overlap. The stakes aren't only in the music, they're in relationships, reputation, and the decisions that ripple long after the camera stops rolling. It's bigger than bars. It's about survival, influence, and leaving your mark without losing yourself in the process. And that's where you come in, watching this unfold with us. What do y'all think about this situation? Did NBA handle it the right way, or did he go too far? How do you weigh loyalty against ego or respect against opportunity? The streets, the fans, and the industry all have opinions, but your take matters too. Drop your thoughts below and let's break it down together. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe, because stories like this don't just end, they evolve. The narrative keeps moving, and trust me, this one is far from over. The lessons, the drama, and the street politics are still alive, still teaching, still reminding us that in hip-hop, respect is everything, and every move counts.